So, Melinda, thanks very much for joining me. I met you at the end of last year. And one thing that really made an impression was that you talked to me a little bit about your life. And you seem to sort of just lightly dance your way from one project to another and incredibly successful with everything that you've done. Now, we know you from your beautiful photographs and being on television a few years ago. But since I would say 2015, 16, you've retrained. Can you tell me what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I retrained as a transpersonal psychotherapist. So yeah, basically now I work with clients, provide psychotherapy, and currently I'm in my final year of a master's degree. I'm doing a research master's. And so yes, so lots of research work, lots of therapeutic work. And yeah, just really, for me, I wanted to sort of get life into a balance and be able to do work that I could really put my heart into, that I really had a passion and cared about. And it's very, very beautiful work. And it's just lovely to be able to see people on a journey and see where it can also take them and the healing that it can provide. I think I don't know that life won't necessarily, I think, provide you the balance. I think you have to find the balance, and I think that's the challenge. And for me, I've just kind of I guess the word would be organically, naturally gone with my own life's journey and wherever that's taken me. And it's taken me into some pretty extraordinary situations and life experiences. And, I often feel when I reflect, on my life and the things that I've done, I feel like I've had many, many lifetimes in one already. But what I recognized I needed, I really needed balance, and that starts obviously internally and finding out, well, what is it that I need in order to, not feel rushed or pressured, to sort of live in accordance to my own nature, if you like, rather than perhaps in accordance to maybe, what I thought was expected of me, or having other things operate within me. So doing the TV work, doing the modeling, that was all sort of early 20s, late 20s. TV carried on for much longer. And certainly, that fitted a phase of my life, but the phase of my life I'm in now is very different. And I think, what I do now and how I live now probably reflects that. But the key to finding that started by understanding what it was that I needed.
I think that's a really important part of it, isn't it? Knowing where you're going to go next, even if you don't know what your destination is, it's going, actually, this is what I need. And do you find that with the therapy you're doing, what type of therapy is it? And when you see a client, what are you looking for? And are you helping them find their own life path and life journey? Or is it something deeper than that and more acute?
Well, it obviously depends. Everybody's going to be different and will come, for different reasons, and will need to explore different aspects of their life and what's happening for them. But sort of generically, the therapy that I do, it's called Transpersonal Integrative psychotherapy. And what that basically means is it's sort of taking into account that we're more than just there's our sort of psychological makeup, if you like, our conditioning, what we've experienced, what our childhoods were like, how we grew up. There's our conditioning sort of within society, within the framework that we live in. We know that that's pretty crazy. And the transpersonal element is the sort of the element that is kind of beyond that. So it's the sort of taking into account somebody's true nature, their true self, the sort of soul self, if you like, the spirit. It's taking that into account when you're working with somebody, so that you're sort of trying to see their whole picture, not just sort of one part of them. And then the work really is to support that person in making their own discoveries and making their own connections. And sometimes it's like we have to unravel, this big ball of wool, and figure out, well, this is showing itself now, but where does that lead all the way back to? Because if we can unravel that and look at it, we can start to make sense of their picture of life and who they are and where they find themselves. So it sort of helps them get a clear sense of themselves. And that in turn will naturally help people, make the choices that are right for themselves, know what it is they need and want. For a lot of people, I myself was included in this, might not necessarily, know kind of deeply who are they and what do they need, as opposed to what is expected and what does the world want from them.
Oh, I see. I love that about this. There's so many layers rather than just sort of tackling the past or dealing with issues. It's like the higher self, the true self, which comes out in so many different ways. What do you recommend to your clients when obviously you have sessions with them when they go away and they're sort of absorbing, internalizing the work that you're doing together? Are there anything that you recommend in suggestions of being able to sort of follow that path in their own way when they're not seeing you?
Again, that's so individual. So I would have to sort of talk on a broader spectrum, because everybody is going to be so unique. No two people are the same and have the same story. But although we share similar things, more often than not, pain and suffering and discomfort are universal, but each person's experience of that is going to be different. So tailored advice or recommendations would be really individual. But for a sort of a broader picture, my kind of advice would always be that to learn to really tune in, to sort of tune into the body. Because often what happens is we and sometimes we don't even recognize it. We are just sort of up here in the mind, and we are kind of held hostage by whatever thinking is going on up there. And there might be stories that play, and we have parts of ourselves that will tell us different things, and that's what we're caught in. We're living life through that lens. That's whatever's going on internally. We're going to see life through that lens. So the more we can come into the body, the more we tune into who we really are, the more we can begin to heal things that we didn't even perhaps know, sort of happening within us. It's like paying attention. It's like fine tuning, so something that is really powerful is to be able to recognize like sensations and feelings that you have in the body, and then to give them your attention. So one thing that, I feel really works, and, this is backed up by many people who are highly qualified to talk about this, is that if you tune into even just a feeling, like if you get constant sort of pain in the neck, or, there's a sort of a nausea in the stomach, or, tune into that and be with it, because it feels counterintuitive. Because often really what we want to do is, if there's pain or discomfort, that's how we register an uncomfortable feeling. We want to get away from it. And that's when we get into things like, distracting and all sorts of coping mechanisms. But if we can start to learn to tolerate that feeling is going to really tell us so much. And it not only will help inform us of what's happening to our internal world, which affects how we see the external world, but we're also going to help heal something, because we're actually giving it our time and attention rather than ignoring it and pretending that it's not there. So staying with difficult, uncomfortable feelings, as hard as that sounds, is something that really can be beneficial. Learning ways and techniques in which to slow down and rest and relax. We're really conditioned to be super busy, hyper productive, and actually, if we can really learn to rest and stop and slow down, again, we're going to get far more in tune with our own nature, and life is going to unfold in a different way when we start to do that. So even just those few things, and therapeutically, without any shadow of a doubt, having time outside in nature, is an absolute gem key. We're part of nature, we're not separate from it, and so there is so much healing and restoration and balance that can come back when we allow ourselves to have that. And it doesn't have to be anything grand. That's as simple as just going for a walk. It's as simple, even if you live in a city or a town where there aren't many green spaces, it's just sort of, get outside and have a look at the sky and whatever plants and trees and shrubs you might pass, just notice them. It's incredibly healing, nature, if we allow ourselves the time to kind of absorb it.
Do you have a favorite green space yourself? I'm sure you have many, but is there one that you could describe?
I love woodland. And I love the sea. I love any green space, to be honest. I don't know, is there one? I love the New Forest. I think that is breathtakingly beautiful. And Dartmoor is also really lovely. That's quite a different kind of landscape, more rugged. But probably if I had to pick one, probably the New Forest would be up there.
Have you ever been caught hugging a tree? Have you?
Many times.
And if you were going to be a tree, which one would you be? I mean, it's maybe that's a tricky question. It's we could dig deep with this as well, I suppose, but just off the top of your head.
Well, my favorite trees, I've got quite a few. So I love the cedar tree. I love
that canopy. It's just beautiful. There's something really elegant about it. Like it's almost just humbled, but still grand. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's got a lot of strength, isn't it? It's a very powerful tree. It's like, they're huge. They are deeply rooted. And something about that canopy and its angles is really quite beautiful. And in contrast, my other favorite tree, which is sort of almost the opposite, would be like a flowering cherry, and they only flower for like such a short amount of time, but that blossom is just like breathtakingly beautiful and fragile and gentle. So the combination of those two I really love.
I love that. I've got a book about if you were a tree, and I'm still trying to work out which one I'd love to be myself. But I love also wisteria. There's something about wisteria on the front of a house. It's failed for me in the past. And the beech trees, I just love just walking past a family of beech trees and almost the magic and which goes on behind what we can actually see. There's just individuals. They're such a community.
They are a community. It feels that way, doesn't it? Yeah, it feels that way. And they've been around so much longer than we have. There's something. They have inspired. So many people over the centuries, and not surprisingly, because they're rooted. They're still, yet they're all in connection with one another.
And that's exactly what we're striving to be like. Maybe that's a good reason for hanging out with the trees on some level. It's just like that whole sense of that vibration that they exude. But it's time, isn't it? It's as you were talking earlier about the time frame which we all live in our heads. Everything is so fast. You do one thing after another, and trees exist on such a different time frame. And I think it's walking into a woodland and just breathing and going, okay.
Yeah. And of course, they allow us to breathe. It's like, how incredible. We wouldn't be here without them. Absolutely. Everything about them, the shade, the color, the fragrance, the fact that they're homes. I'm lucky that at home I've got a really big old tree in the garden, and it's got an owl's nest in it. And the life that goes on in this tree, it's like a multi-story building. It's just got so many families in it, squirrels, owls, the woodpeckers, everything. They are incredible. And it's so simple, isn't it? And free.
It's honestly just wise words from a person who I just loved hanging out with last time. Last time we were in a bar together. Next time I hunt you down, I'm going to find you in a woodland, and we're going to just hug a tree and just discuss, nothing, because life can just be like that sometimes, just on a level, just hovering in the ether. Melinda Messenger, thank you so much.